Hi, welcome to Life in a Bottle, Season 2, Episode 51. We've got a lot of information to cover in this exciting wine, just a little bit outside the norm. So, before we even dive into the wine, where are we? We're in Austria, we're in Burgenland, and more specifically, we are in the village of Pamhagen. This is the 2019 Biokult Naken. So we're going to throw a few terms at you real quick and kind of breeze right through them. The first is biodynamic. Biokult is a consortium of biodynamic growers. They made their first vintage in 2005, but a lot of these growers have been around much longer than that. They're growing biodynamically. They're all certified biodynamic, certified organic, and basically this is like the cream of the crop for natural wine. There's no chemicals, no pesticides, fertilizers are made on the farm from native composts. They are doing things to foster the microorganisms in the soil, like growing cover crops in between the rows of vines. They are planting different flowers and herbs to attract beneficial insects and predatory birds and pollinators. So they're trying to take care of the vineyards as part of the local ecosystem as a whole. The second is orange wine. So a weird phrase for some people. What the heck is an orange wine? Sometimes it's literally orange. In this case, it's not, but we'll get to that. And it's basically what happens when you make an orange wine, or excuse me, when you make a white wine like a red wine. So instead of pressing off the juice and allowing it to run away from the skins and fermenting it, it's allowing fermentation to begin and continue to a certain degree with the skins and the rest of the grape material in the wine. So it's going to extract some color from the skins. It's going to extract some tannins and some other chemical compounds that contribute structure to the wine as well. You're going to get also a little bit more complex aromatics that you normally wouldn't get from these grapes. So super fascinating, super delicious, especially in this case. Some of them can be real funky. This one's delicious. The third term I'm going to throw at you is Pétnat. So Pétnat is short for Pétillant Naturel, and in a nutshell, it is basically one of the oldest forms of sparkling wine that we know of. So as wine ferments, yeasts turn sugar in the grapes into alcohol and carbon dioxide. And that is where sparkling wine gets its spritz from, is carbon dioxide that's been trapped in the wine. Most still wine, that just kind of blows off before it's bottled. The trick here for Pétnat is they're bottling the wine and putting a pressurized crown cap on before fermentation is completely finished. So there's just a tiny little bit of fermentation occurring inside the bottle. And normally that's a bad thing, but when it's planned and controlled, it adds just the tiniest little bit of prickly spritz that adds just another level of complexity. It's not a sparkling wine, not by any means. There's very few bubbles in there, but as I poured it, there were just a couple bubbles that kind of crept out. And again, that comes across as a little bit of that prickle on the palate. So we've talked about orange wine, we've talked about biodynamics, and we've talked about Pétnat. So I'm going to dive right into this wine. The Naken is a blend of 90% Pinot Gris and 10% Muscateller. Pinot Gris, we all know, Pinot Grigio, same grape, just different language depending on where it's grown. As Pinot Gris is allowed to ripen, if it is allowed to ripen fully, it'll turn even dark red. So you're going to get some pink to reddish hues from super ripe Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris to begin with. Muscateller can be red, it can be white depending on the varietal. In this case, it's not, but Muscateller, as part of the Muscat family, is going to contribute significantly, even in small amounts. It's a super floral, super aromatic, kind of spicy grape, like Muscat or even Gewürztraminer. It's kind of down that same vein. It'll add a little bit of richness and texture as well. So even in small amounts, it's going to add a really fascinating level of complexity. To dive into the glass, first of all, I said orange wine, but it's definitely on the pink side. It's definitely salmon colored. And I think that's coming largely from the Pinot Gris skins that are just ripe enough to get some of that color. On the nose, again, super aromatically complex. There are some flowers there, some honeysuckle, some white flowers, maybe some lily, but it's not ham-fisted. It doesn't hit you over the head. It's just kind of the first thing you notice. Behind that, there's some tart white fruit, some nectarine, maybe some apple that's just begun to oxidize just a tiny little bit. There's some minerality hiding out there as well. And there's a little bit of a tea, maybe a jasmine tea, some kind of tea in there that comes through as well. on the palate. My mouth instantly waters. It's got some great acidity to it, but it's not out of balance. It's not like razor blades. It's super bright and fresh. My mouth does water. Immediately think that this would be great wine with a lot of different foods because of that acidity. The fruit on the palate comes through a lot like the nose. Some apple, some nectarine, some stone fruit for sure. You get that tea for sure. You get that flower. The structure is super complex. Again, it's a white wine with tannin, and while it's not going to be quite as robust and leathery and chewy as some red wines, it's still there. The closest thing I could compare it to would be the tannins that you find in a strong green tea. All in all, the wine comes together really beautifully, and it's awesome as an aperitif because of the freshness. This would go great with some soft cheese. This would go great with charcuterie. It's got that lightness and the acidity to kind of work with that the richness of those ingredients and those flavors. I think, honestly, this would be a great pairing. The first dish that comes to mind is fried artichokes. We got a little train action here. And fried artichokes, that sounds kind of weird and obscure, but as somebody who thinks about pairing food and wine, to think about pairing fried artichokes with a wine is a nightmare. So to have a wine like this that's got some of that vegetal green bitterness from the skins and some on the structure as well to work against something that's fried and rich, this would be perfect for that. Additionally, I think white meat, anything with a little bit of richness but still on the lighter side, maybe some chicken with pesto or some cod, this would be absolutely killer. So no, I've kind of run through pretty quickly, but there's a lot to say about this wine. I hope you guys give it a shot. I hope you love it as much as I did. It is absolutely fascinatingly delicious. So, cheers.